So, with what's been coming out of CinemaCon this week, is there a reason to get excited? Well, we'll talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch Podcast.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 186 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
And so this week has been CinemaCon 2023. It's finishing up today, actually, and so we've been getting news from that. And CinemaCon, for those who don't know what that is, very much like Comic-Con San Diego and D23, they give sneak peeks and news about movies to get audiences excited about it. Mm-hmm. CinemaCon is the national convention for NATO, the National Association of Theater Owners.
Okay.
And so this is how the movie studios are trying to get the theater owners excited. Mm-hmm. So they have this big convention in Las Vegas. This year, it's at Caesar's Palace.
Ooh.
And it started out Monday, and we'll be finishing up today. And I've been filtering through all the news and trying to get an idea about what's been going on. It's a kind of a strange situation because they release a lot of different information, but it's basically for the theater owners. They're not wanting a lot of this stuff to get out into the public quite yet. So the different studios are putting things out and hinting about what's coming up in the near future, but pictures and things like that are really tightly locked down, and they show a lot of different things, and they tease a lot of stuff also, like Warner Brothers. They, of course, was talking about the new Batman, the Robert Pattinson.
Oh, yes.
You know, that's coming out, and they teased it a little bit, although that's not coming out until 2025. Mm-hmm. But they also did a logo, and talking about Batman, they also showed a logo for Beetlejuice 2.
Wow.
So apparently there's this thought that Flash is going to do so well that people are going to see a lot of things Michael Keaton based.
Okay.
The details of all of that's been locked down. There has been a confirmation of sorts that Jenna Ortega is going to be involved with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Whether she's playing Lydia or playing Lydia's daughter, there's really not a whole lot of information. All we have is there's a logo, so they're being serious about it.
Okay.
And, of course, we've been hearing rumors about this for years and years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there was a cartoon and a Broadway show. Mm-hmm. So there's
the Broadway show just closed recently.
Right, yeah.
So it closed in January, I think. But it was extremely popular.
Yeah.
There's definitely
an interest. Buzz. There's
definitely a buzz there. And again, with Michael Keaton, they're thinking that his appearance in Flash is going to get people excited about seeing something else with Michael Keaton in it. And that makes sense to me. I do have to talk about The Flash for a little bit because at CinemaCon this year, they showed the entirety of the movie.
Really?
Yes.
And how did that go?
Here's what's really interesting about it. Again, nobody's saying specifically what they saw because they can't, obviously. I'm sure that everybody there had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which makes perfect sense. You don't want to ruin the movie before you even get it out there. But, of course, you can talk about how you felt about the movie, and the word coming out has been people understand now why Warner Brothers did not want to yank this movie. They're saying it's that good.
Really? Okay, good. Yay, DC.
Yeah. But obviously, you want a lot of buzz. And
Blue Beetle looked really good. So
yeah, they did show a few scenes from Blue Beetle.
Okay.
They showed all of Flash, and word coming out has been not only is this probably one of the best Warner Brothers DCEU movies, it's going to be one of the best comic book movies. Now,
wow, that's some.
Yeah, we'll take that with a grain of salt, but apparently people who have seen it have said, yeah, this movie's incredible.
And some fighting words.
Yeah, they said this movie is amazing. It's incredible. I have heard people say that it's going to make James Gunn's job much harder because it's so good. It's going to set the bar so high that it might be difficult to follow this movie up. And I'm like, really? It's that good?
Wow.
So apparently people are really loving this movie, and it's going to be...
Hope it doesn't overhype it.
Yeah, that's what I'm...
'Cause-
Yeah, I'm definitely worried about that. But I can certainly understand why they want to make this a big splash, because, again, we have the Ezra Miller thing, and so people are going to be nervous to show this movie. Is this going to be a problem? But apparently everybody is just raving about this movie. They said it's going to be incredible. It's going to do great business. And they're really hyping it up. But like you say, if they overhype it, it's going to be pretty bad.
Like Phantom Menace.
Yeah. Yeah, it could backfire on them. And if that happens, then, of course, James Gunn's job is going to become much more difficult, because now he's got to follow up on that. And again, Marvel's sort of in that same situation, because their movies haven't been doing as good as they used to. And next week, we get Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yep.
And I have been avoiding everything in the world about that, including stuff they've been showing at CinemaCon, because, again, I don't want the movie spoiled for me. And apparently they are just throwing everything out there, pictures and scenes, and I don't want any of that stuff. And I wish there would be an easy way to avoid all that stuff. Obviously, stay off the internet would be the easiest way of doing that. But again, then we just sit here and talk about, I heard there's a bunch of stuff online that I ain't looking at. But they're also prepping things like Guardians of the Galaxy and the Marvels, and also The Little Mermaid. Apparently there was some photographs and some scenes from The Little Mermaid. They showed parts of Melissa McCarthy's performance of Poor Unfortunate Souls.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the number, obviously,
Yes.
for Ursula. Getting people excited into that as well. But again, there's been all of this news, and I'm trying to be really careful about what I read about and what I look at, because, again, I'm in a weird situation where you want to get the news, things like Beetlejuice 2. Yeah, that's something to know. But at the same time, they get so desperate to get information out and to get the theater owners excited about showing the movies that it feels like they're letting too much out of the bag, at least for the audience like me. There's a point where one trailer sells the movie for me. I don't mind seeing like the first trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and that just let me know it's coming.
Yeah.
Give me a very vague trailer that will get me excited about the movie, and then just don't tell me anything else.
I saw a trailer today that was very much like what you just described, and the problem with that is I still know nothing about what this movie is about. It's called Wish from Disney. It's the new Disney movie, and when you look at the trailer, it looks like a mix between the modern CGI animated film and old school paintings, cartoon animation. I know Alan Tudyk's in it,
Right.
and I know that someone wants to buy her Wish, and that's all I got.
Yeah. Which, that would be enough for me.
Okay.
You know, that's about the extent that I really want to know about movies.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before. Years ago, they had this movie called The Island.
Ah, yes, the remake of parts of Clonus Horror.
Yeah, there you go. But the thing about that movie, of course, is that there was a big reveal in the middle of the movie that they spoiled in the trailer and screwed up the entire movie. You're in this utopian world, but there's something rotten in the core of it, and you don't know what it is. And toward the middle of the movie, they find out that everybody living there is really like a clone, and that there are people in the real world that if anything happens to one of their organs or something, they need a transplant, then the clone that's in this utopian world, they win this prize, and they get to go to this magical place, which sounds a lot like they get to go to the farm.
Yep.
So what happens is they wind
They actually
up...
go to market.
Yeah. So they get operated on, they get their organs harvested so that the real person, the
as
original.
They call it the original. That was from a book and then a movie called Never Let Me Go.
Right.
And it's the same premise, but at least those children grow up knowing that once you get so old, they're going to start taking your organs.
Right.
I enjoy that sort of, I don't know if that's a genre or trope or
Yeah.
in sci-fi.
Yeah.
And as far as sci-fi goes, I
Right.
like that kind of
Yeah.
battle.
But the whole purpose of the movie was you didn't know what was going on. And then toward the middle of the movie, you find out what's going on.
Right.
And that was the point of the movie. Well, they told you what was going on in the trailer. And everybody in the first part of the movie where they're wandering around and going, what the heck's going on? You're clones and you're being harvested. And of course, since you already know it, the mystery that was supposed to be what drove the first half of your movie is completely gone. So it was like really stupid to even tell anybody what was going on. You could have sold it on this utopia with a mystery in the center of it. And that's all you should have told anybody.
Right.
And so that was really frustrating for me because I still went to see the movie, but here was the thing. I didn't realize that the mystery that they revealed in the trailer was like
was supposed to be the twist.
It was supposed to be the twist. I thought this was something they're going to reveal like in the first act. It's basically an inciting incident is what you would call that in writing, that they find out that they're clones and that's where everything goes south. And then the plot of the movie is basically to figure out how do we get out of this situation. But no, it was a twist in the middle. And so they basically just ruined the movie. And I feel like a lot of the marketing that's going on right now is doing the same thing. They're overselling it too much and they're telling us way too much. And I understand that there are certain key points to movies that you have to talk about to sell them. But it really does bother me. There are a lot of things that are revealed in trailers that I would have just loved never to known about. And I've talked about this before, but in Civil War, I would have loved to have been able to go into that movie and not know that Spider-Man was in it.
Oh, yes.
I would have loved
when they said, hey, Underoos.
How crazy would that have been to have been sitting in that theater and then Peter Parker, and you're like, what, Spider-Man is in this?
Right.
That would have been amazing. I would have loved to have been able to have that experience. You know, and it's why, as messed up as this might be, wouldn't it be wonderful we lived in a world like Severance, where you could see trailers that would get you excited about the movie, but as you go into the movie, everything that you saw basically just gets wiped out of your memory, and you don't know anything going into it, and you just get that moment.
So many of those that'd be fun to watch all over again.
Although I have to say, I do, now that I have said it, I can see that there is possibly a flaw in my plan here, which is, suppose you go to see a horror movie and you got to find out in the theater that you're going to see a horror movie.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what this is. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Like parts of Clonus Horror. Now, had you seen parts of Clonus Horror before you saw The Island?
No.
Oh, have you seen it yet?
No, actually, I haven't seen it yet.
Ooh, we should do that with
like a flashback. Yeah, we could definitely do that. But it would be interesting, maybe once, to see a horror movie and not realize you're going to see a horror movie. But the point of a horror movie is when you go in there, you should at least know what you're getting into so you can brace yourself. If you're going to go in and see something like Evil Dead Rise, which I was going to go watch a couple of days ago, but some other things came up, and I probably am going to wind up going in to see it tomorrow, perhaps tomorrow or Saturday. And if I do, then we can talk about it next week because I am curious about it. But I can't imagine going into that movie completely blind and not knowing what you're getting yourself into. But I've been hearing a lot of good things about the movie, and we talked about this last week, but I'm starting to wonder if I would enjoy a movie it's graphic. There's not any real character development. These are just people you're tossing into a meat grinder. Although, if you're being honest about it, if you care about the characters, it does make it worse.
Yes.
And I have been hearing that these are characters that you're going to care about. So,
and their children.
So maybe that famous cheese grater scene that everybody keeps talking about is going to be really hard to watch.
Wow.
But I'm curious to see if it's going to match up with the hype. I'm a big fan of the Evil Dead movies, but, there was that comedy element to it. There was that cartoon element to the Evil Dead movies that...
And can we have that when we're trying to kill children?
Yeah, apparently we don't, because the Evil Dead movie that was before that is a remake.
Yeah.
The remake of Evil Dead, you got the Cabin in the Woods back, but they decided they weren't going to do the comedy side of it, and so
Yes.
they played it very straight
Mm-hmm.
and extremely brutal.
Yeah.
And apparently this is the same thing, and people are saying that this is an amazing movie, but it's very graphic and it's very rough to watch. And in a real sense, I'm curious as to, can I watch those kind of movies anymore? Do I want to watch those type
Right.
of movies anymore? Because at the end of the day, when I watch a movie, I want to watch it and enjoy it.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not the young guy who wants to prove his mettle. I can watch anything.
I guess Cube. I watched Cube.
Yes, I
Yeah.
saw Cube.
That was a bit like Saw and those kind of movies. So
Yeah, it was a very fascinating concept for a movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And not knowing who you can trust. That was like a double feature for me. When I first saw that, I had watched Pi before that.
I don't know what Pi is.
Oh, that is a very fascinating black and white film that in some cases is a little bit hard to watch.
Okay.
It's about this mathematician who's very much into numbers and understanding patterns in numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically has this massive computer that he hobbles together himself, and he is trying to come up with a way to understand the patterns of the stock market. He feels like there's patterns in everything in the world, and that if he can determine how the pattern goes in the stock market, you could predict how stocks are going to rise and fall.
Yeah.
And obviously that is going to be...
James Randi said you couldn't do that.
Yeah. But here's the thing. When he was a kid, he looked up into the sun and went blind
Ooh. Okay.
for a few moments. But when he came to, he could work out equations in his head. But he also had, at times, these raging, horrifying migraine headaches.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody that I know you have migraines,
Mm-hmm.
it is probably the most accurate way that you could show someone having a migraine
On film?
on film.
Wow. Uh-huh.
And almost to the point where I wouldn't recommend that you watch Pi,
Okay.
because I think it would actually trigger a migraine in you.
Wow. Okay.
Because those moments when he's having the migraines are really intense.
Oof.
It's this great black and white film, and it was Aronofsky's first film, actually. Darren Aronofsky directed this, and then he went from that to directing Requiem for a Dream, which is also another one of those unpleasant movies that if you could watch it once, but you're probably not going to want to
Right.
watch it again. And then he started to mellow out a little bit, thank goodness. Pi is a great movie. Like I said, I think you would enjoy it up to the point where you have the scenes where he's having the migraines. They are so intense, and there's a screeching sound that I feel like you would have to be careful, because it might actually trigger
Wow.
an
okay.
actual migraine in you. And sometimes it gives me headaches when I watch it, because it is very just rough.
Yeah. That you're making them sound so appealing.
Yeah.
Like CinemaCon must have.
Yeah. Yeah. CinemaCon, again, today is their last day, and I figure probably we'll go over a lot of whatever news I can get out of it.
Going too spoilery.
Yeah, you don't want to go too spoilery, but again, there's like a lot of stuff that's been coming out, and there are little bits and bites and dribs and drabs, and there's other news that's woven into it. I saw something about Agatha Harkness.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw a little mention. We got Patti LuPone, who's going to be in it also. And since, if you recall, in WandaVision, the big thing was Agatha all along.
It was Agatha all along. Yep.
And of course, sung by Catherine Hahn. Apparently, the songwriters for that little tune are being brought back to Coven of Chaos, because apparently there will be music in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go, I do have to mention this, because I wasn't sure exactly what the story was on this. And I thought, it's a great story, but is it a true story? That's
Right.
the thing. Not all great stories are true stories. But I heard about something about the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
What?
You remember our paladin walking down the beach?
Yes.
Right? So apparently there's more to that scene than we knew. Because what happened was, of course, when you're acting, you keep going until they say cut.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So we have our paladin walking away, walking down the beach, and they're filming it. And a question was posed. What if we don't say cut? Well, let's wait.
How far will he go?
So they just let it go. And a lot of the stuff Chris Pine was saying during that scene, that was all improv.
Because they didn't say cut.
Because they didn't say cut. They were like, let's just see that line about, okay, is he going to walk around the rock or is he going to jump over it? Yeah, they were curious.
Fantastic.
And we told him to walk a straight line. Is he just going to walk over the rock? Yeah, he's going to walk right over the rock.
Right over top.
And so apparently that whole thing was like, in a sense, it was a practical joke.
Yes.
Let's not say cut. Let's see how long he does this.
Yep.
He's a professional. He did it as absolutely as long until they said cut.
Yep.
And a lot of the stuff Chris Pine said during that whole thing it was all improv. And they were like, this is so great and it's so funny. We have to keep it in the movie.
Gotta keep it. Yes.
I thought that was amazing. So I thought that was great. But next week we got Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah.
And again, there's been all this news coming out about it and interviews with actors. And there's been some speculation about who's going to still be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I've been avoiding every bit of it because, again, I don't want to be spoiled. And that's the line that we wind up walking because it's like you want to report the news and you want to know stuff about the movies, but at the same time, you don't want to basically wreck it for yourself and people listening to you.
Yeah.
But come next week, we don't have to worry about that anymore. We can just watch the movie and then we can see what happens.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 186. Thank you for listening and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. For Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.